All right, I'd like to share with you just an example, do a comparison contrast of patient education relative to two totally separate categories. One is clinical and one is business. And unfortunately, business is a part of life. When I say business, what am I talking about? Money. Talking about money. So here's the bottom line. There's the clinical aspect, right? And obviously, the issue is to marriage the clinical aspect to the business aspect, right? From an ethical standpoint, ethical, moral standpoint, you'd like this to match that. And then sometimes we have problems here, sometimes we have problems here. It's sometimes people overdo the money, sometimes people overdo the clinical. So let's go into how this works. So we go into patient education. First of all, what's its relationship to your business and practice? Well, there's only for-profit centers exchanging time for money. That is, you bring in new business, there's repeat purchases, you either increase the fees or you decrease the overhead. That's it. You only have 4 options to increase your profitability. That's the first level. By the way, just as a short note, only 1% of millionaires become millionaires exchanging time for money. Doing that, 14% do it by leveraging money, 85% do it by leveraging time. So, the very first thing you need to know and be good at are the principles of how to maximize your time for money, because those are the principles you need to go to the second category, leveraging money or leveraging time. If you don't have those principles, you can't do either the second or third level. Most small businesses never learn how to do that. Do you know what small business is? What percentage of a small business profit $100,000 or more a year? 9%. Everybody thinks because you're self-employed you make a lot of money. No. 9% of small business owners make $100,000 or more a year. What percentage of businesses make over $250,000 a year? You're down to 3%. It's a real small number. Now, why do I say that? Where does chiropractic fit into that? Well, chiropractic, there's a really high probability you can make $250,000 exchanging your time for money in a practice without leveraging time or money. Okay? So the opportunity is fantastic compared to a lot of other businesses. I mean, let's face it, where else can you take a 3-hour lunch? Where else can you work only 4 hours a day? Because that's all you really work in a chiropractic office. That's called industrial hours. You really only see patients from 9 to about 10:30 or 11, and then about 3 to 6 roughly. That's called industrial hours. That's, in other words, when patients can come in. So that limits you. That's like if you have a breakfast restaurant. Go ahead and try to open a breakfast restaurant at 5 in the afternoon. You'll get killed because you violated industrial hours. Now, the industrial hours vary if you're in the inner city, suburb, or rural. If you're in the inner city, they're more early morning, and you go in early, and you typically take off earlier. And lunchtime and early morning is real busy. Suburb, it's typically like 9 to 6. After work hours, 4 to 6 are the busy hours. And then in bedroom community, rural, it's usually late. You can go in late, but then you got to stay late because people are driving back from work, getting back to your community later. So these are the natural limitations. So let's go into the clinical part of patient education. So what's the importance of patient education? Well, that's where it all starts. Are you going to be able to increase your profitability very much by decreasing your overhead? No. Now, if you got crazy, the national average for overhead in a chiropractic office is 50 to 70%. It's $12,000 to $14,000 a month. That's the national average. Okay. So you go, like our overhead average was 38%, so we were, 12% better But is that going to be a significant way to increase your income by cutting your overhead? No. How about increasing your fees? Is that a significant way? Well, in chiropractic, there's only so many fees that the patients will pay to a certain degree, and then it gets to how affordable do you make it, and then the next category is what kind of cases are you taking? Are you going after higher value cases like personal injury or disc neuropathy, stuff like that? Okay, so that's definitely a way to increase your profitability. What's the fastest, easiest way is patient retention. Bottom line is, if you don't keep patients, you need a whole heck of a lot of new patients. That's the bottom line. So let's go into the clinical aspect first and go. So that's the importance of patient education. Everything starts with being able to keep a patient. Everything. Okay, what would we like to do? Well, I'd like to keep patients. I'd like them to pay the highest amount, and I'd like them to pay that for the rest of their life. Who else would like that? Okay, what business would not? Every business you go to, wouldn't they like to do that? Wouldn't they like get you to do that? Yeah. Yeah. There's some businesses I do that. I buy toothpaste all the time. I buy underwear, I buy t-shirts. Nobody tells me to do it. I've been trained, I've been educated in the value system versus the money. And so there's things that we buy all the time. It's either from survival security or cognitively it's been educated in to do it. But are we naturally going to do it? No. So let's go to the clinical part first. So there's 3 stages of patient retention. The first stage is symptoms. What is that? That's what the patient wants. We don't know any better. I go to a doctor for a particular problem. I don't know any better besides my symptoms. Whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. That's the only thing I'll know, unless that doctor educates me otherwise. I won't know any better. So that's called market forces. So how much time or money do we want to spend in anything that we do? As little as possible to nothing. So this is what you're getting. If you don't do anything, this is what you naturally get. Everything's working against you. They don't want to come in. I don't want to get up tomorrow and go to the dentist. I don't want to get up tomorrow and go to the optometrist. Sometimes you talk with chiropractors and they think, patients enjoy getting up, going to the chiropractor 3 times a week. I'm like, are you crazy? They got to go to work. They got to go to the grocery store. They got to go take their kids to soccer. They got to go shop. They got a lot of stuff to do. A lot of times the chiropractor thinks it's about them. That's like this one chiropractor I was talking to. He's in the room with the patient for 15 minutes. Staff's always knocking on the door. Patients are waiting. Patients are waiting. This is during industrial hours. So he's killing his practice. Right? Patients are waiting. I said, do you really? So you're in there 12 to 15 minutes with a patient. He didn't think anything. Well, 12, 15 minutes. But then he had them wait in the waiting room 10 to 15 minutes before they came back. And then how long did it take for them to drive to his office? The average time it takes to drive to work and back is 22 minutes. And then how long were they on therapy? See, he only saw a window of 12 minutes to 15 minutes. That's all he was thinking about because that was his time. How much investment in time was it for that patient? 22 minutes to 22 minutes back. We're at roughly over 40. There's another 10 minutes waiting. They're with him for 15, so there's another 30, 40. We're already over an hour. We're about an hour and 10 at therapy. So we're easily at an hour and 15, an hour and a half. The patient invested an hour and a half for that experience. And how many times are you wanting them to do it? See, it's not that big of a deal if it's just once, right? And especially if it's real important. It's not that big of a deal. But when you're talking about 3 times a week or twice a week, that gets to be a little bit of an investment. And so this is why we pay a lot of attention to just an unbelievable amount of attention to efficiency, not having them wait at all when they sign in. Being with them, the average adjustment for one region only takes 3 minutes. If you left out all the BS and you said, "Hey Mary, all right, how you doing today? Great, all right. Let's go ahead and get busy. Let's go ahead and get started. I know you're busy. Scale of 1 to 10, where are you at with your neck today? 7, all right. All right, sit right here, let me check you. Palpate, palpate, fixation, fixation, tenderness, tenderness, muscle spasm, muscle spasm. All right, that's not good there. Tender here, tender there, a little tightness here, fixation. All right, let me go ahead and work with you, Mary. Hold still, crack. Hold still, crack. Hold just a second. All right, that'll do it for today. Hold just 1 second, Mary. Let me document this. Bilateral fixation, C5. Right lateral flexion, tenderness, C5. Scale of grade 2. And bilateral cervical muscle spasms and extensors. All right, very good, Mary. You have a great day. How long did that take? That was the adjustment. That was a one-region adjustment. That was a classic one-region adjustment. And that's what they wanted. They wanted the service. They wanted me to be nice. They wanted to leave. Now they typically go to therapy. Therapy, if it's a passive therapy, it's 5 to 7 minutes. If it's an active therapy, remember, passive therapies are not timed. You know that, right? You can do it for 1 minute. You know that, right? They're not timed. Okay, so we typically do them 5 minutes. Active therapies are. If you do a modifier, it's 8 minutes. If you don't, it's 15 minutes. Okay? All right. So, if it's 2 regions or 3, and by the way, what percentage of the time typically is it one region? It's about 30% of the time, roughly. If you do 2 regions, like cervical thoracic, you're looking at about 4 to 5 minutes. Or if you're doing cervical low back. That's with high efficiency, direction, getting to the point and moving them, right? Because remember, they're spending an hour and a half on this deal. How much more do they want to spend with you? As little as possible. You're not their main deal. I hate to blow your whistle, but you're not the big game for them that day. The dentist is not my big game when I get up in the morning. He's a pain in the butt. He's an outsider. He's something I don't want to deal with. I got other priorities in my life as a consumer, as a patient. So I'm paying a lot of attention to this because how easy is it for them to fire me and for me to get market forces? That's what I'm going to get unless I have the ability to change it. That's bottom line. In other words, I have the ability to change their value system, their awareness, from conscious incompetence to conscious competence. To change their awareness, which changes their value system, which now makes them more willing to spend the time or money. If you don't, that's what you get. Okay. The second type of chiropractic care essentially is the functional capacity. Now, this is a whole lot of different things. How many different models are here? Well, we teach the 3 phases of healing. That's what I teach. That's the model I use. Why is it the model I use? It's called standard of care. There's no paradigm shifts. It makes sense to the patient. It's called standard of care. No matter what other model you do, you better be doing that. You better be even if you don't educate it, you better be documenting to that because it's called malpractice when you don't. It's called standard of care. What else is there? Chiropractic biophysics. That's a model. That's a patient education model. That's one of the best models. Combining chiropractic biophysics with the science of the 3 phases of healing. It's just total science. There's no philosophy. There's no guessing. It's the way the body heals, period. What's another one? Subluxation. Good luck with that one. Nobody knows the word. Nobody comes in to buy it. It's confusing as hell. Creates a paradigm shift, which creates defensive reactions, violates trust. That's typically the practice that has the highest dropout rate of new patients fast. That's why chiropractic's at 8% utilization 130 years later. You can't say you can do everything and actually be something. Number 4, naturopath. There's naturopathic, right? People that are more into nutrition, things like that, or not nutrition, but naturopathy. Then there's nutrition itself. That's a model. In other words, your main focus is nutrition. That's your education model. Homeopathy, right? You guys know probably some people that do homeopathy. These aren't real big ones. Homeopathy, that's not real big. These are all different models of patient education. Now, the better you are at delivering this, you get less of this. That's what happens. Now, if you don't do much of this at all, you're going to get symptoms. Where does this all show up? It shows up in your statistics. That's where it all shows up. Now, then there's the third type of patient education that goes past this. That's the lifestyle. Now, some chiropractors have what's called a maintenance. Maintenance is terrible, by the way. Only 3% of people will naturally pick maintenance. Naturally. 3%. So you got a 97% failure rate if this is what you're banking on, maintenance care. And chiropractors typically don't even educate it in. They just talk about it, and then mostly never happens. Lifestyle is a whole different ballgame. Lifestyle is a whole different. That's education again. That's shifting the consciousness to move it away from market forces. In other words, there's very specific parameters. There's very specific goal. There's very specific guidelines. There's very specific biomarkers. And there's very specific consequences if they don't do it. I brushed my teeth this morning. Nobody had to do patient education yesterday. I haven't had a dentist do patient education with me in probably 20 or 30 years. Why did I brush my teeth this morning? I did it yesterday. I'm going to do it again tomorrow. Why did I do that? Because they shifted my value system. They shifted my value system to be willing to spend the time and money to do it day after day after day. They shifted it. So these are the types of patient retention. And then we go into how important is patient retention. Well, we already said it's the single most important part of business. Any business, by the way. Any business. You got a business that just sells a one-off, they got to get a lot of business. They got to get a lot of business. So the repeat business is the key to decreasing how much business you need, increasing the quality. In other words, if people come back, it's going to be higher quality because trust and confidence naturally goes up and defenses and resistance go down. Quality, you guys have noticed that, right? Patients come back are easy to deal with, aren't they? Okay, so that's where you're at with clinical. And then let's go into the business side. And by the way, before we go over here, what will determine the doctor not getting symptom care from the patients? The doctor's skill level. The doctor's knowledge. First, he has to be knowledgeable in these different categories. He's got to believe it. There's got to be conviction in what you're doing. And it doesn't matter if you have conviction and you believe it and you're a terrible communicator. So you have to be able to communicate it. You got to understand it, you got to know it, you got to believe it, you got to be able to communicate it. That's the only way you take the consumer, the patient, out of this model right here. The better your knowledge and skill and communication is, the more you'll get people to buy into what it is you're preaching, whatever model it is you're preaching. The less you do this, the more of this you get. Where does it all show up? It shows up in the stats. That's where it all shows up. And then you can combine these with with national statistics. Like what's the national average for patient to see a chiropractor? Patient visit. It's 18. 18 visits.
18 per patient?
Yeah. But here's the catch. Is that just symptom-based? In other words, when somebody comes in, are they going to give you 18 visits? No. That's 18 visits for a chiropractor that's been in practice 14 years and doing patient education. Some type of this. So they've pulled it away from this to some degree, because what's the normal amount of visits somebody will give you? It's usually anywhere from 6 to 12 visits. 6 to 12 visits, symptom care. As soon as they start feeling better, they're done. That's it. And when I say better, I'm basically talking about a neutral position, not dynamic. Static neutral position. So, that's where we're at. All right, so having said that, now, obviously a good practice is a practice that knows how to go past this, do good patient education, pick a model, whatever it is. Because if you don't pick a model, you get this. If you're not good at it, you get this. You're not good at communication, you get this. You're not good at conviction, you get this. The less knowledge, conviction, and ability to communicate, the more of this you get. Where does that show? Stats. That's where it shows. And then obviously we'd like to take them through this. And then obviously we'd like to have them sign up for this. This is regular periodic care. Like I buy toothpaste. I brushed my teeth today. I'm going to buy toothpaste when that tube's empty. I'm going to spend time and money. There's plenty of systems we spend time or money on that our consciousness has been shifted. That's what this is. Does it happen naturally? No. I would never have bought toothpaste. 120 years ago, there was no such thing as toothpaste. So, this takes knowledge and skill. Now, the great news about this that most chiropractors aren't aware of is once you're pretty good at this, over 50% of the people buy into this, you have 20% of them that'll naturally buy into this immediately, no matter how bad you are or why. Why? Like? Is that the word, like?
They benefit from it.
Is like the word?
No.
How many things do you like that you don't spend time or money on? A fair amount? There's a lot of stuff you like you don't spend time or money on. Like's not the word. They already value it, but they already trust you. They already trust you. If they've already bought into this, 20% of them will take this even if you're bad at it because they already trust you. They value what you say, it makes sense, and they already trust you. Even though let's say you're bad at it. You'll have 20% of your practice staying for lifestyle care if you just delivered it. How many of you are delivering lifestyle care? None of you. You can increase your practice 20% by being bad. There's 20% of the people that go, that makes sense. And by the way, it's an add-on to this. It's not separate from this. It's supplemental. It's like a pyramid. It just adds and builds. So if you just added that to your practice, but if you don't even know how to keep them here, you won't be able to do it here. It's like a pyramid. So the first thing you have to do is have to have a system. You have to believe in it. You got to be able to communicate it. That shows up in the stats. And that's why I say you have to have over 50% prepay with whatever system you're doing. Because that's what stops this. When people don't pay in advance, they leave when they're symptom-based, period. No matter if you do great patient education. Now, I can do good patient education and the person not prepay, and they will still stay longer than somebody who doesn't get patient education. They will. But they're not nowhere near going to stay near the person who does prepay for that whole system. Now, once they've bought into this is easy to get 20% of them because they already know, like, and trust you, and it makes sense. Now, 20% of them will never do it for different reasons. They don't like you. They're too damn busy. They don't want to brush their damn teeth. Whatever reason. There's people that don't go to the dentist. There's people that don't brush their teeth. 20% of the people just won't do it for some reason, whatever reason. So I'm not going to try to I'm not going to try to convert everybody. So 20% down here will very easily, if you're terrible. 20% won't, even if you're great. What does that mean? 60% will be dependent on your knowledge and skill level. You'll be able to move the needle of how many of these people will stay here back to your knowledge and skill level. How good of a communicator are you? How well are you delivering this? How well do you know sales? How well do you know how to establish need and minimize obstacles? That's what this is about here. So I always say you can have a practice, especially if you got a lot of older patients, a lot of inactive older patients. One of the first things to do is take them through this. That's one of the first easiest ways to build your practice, is take people who already know, like, and trust you, already have this foundation, and deliver this. Your practice will shoot up 20%. Now, 20% can be a lot. Some doctors that are seeing 100, 200 visits a week, that's 20, 40 visits a week immediately. And that's with no additional new patients. So I've got doctors who have just a really strong backload of older patients. They literally could fill another doctor's schedule just by offering this to all their past patients. No more new patients. Okay, let's leave this alone. This is all based on the science and, the reality and all that. And of course, the time here is not just the information, it's the typical time and money. That's the real key here. We're dealing with the perception of value, the need relative to time or money. That's really what we're dealing with there. Okay, let's come over to here now. The business side. The business side is the money side. This is the ugly side. This is the side nobody likes to talk about. So let's go ahead and figure this out. How much money do you need to make a living? How much money do you need to survive? Let's start from there. How much money do you need to survive? Pay all your bills, your mortgage, your car payment, your food. The national average, I think, for income right now is $47,000. Let's just start with that, okay? Let's just start with the national average, $47,000. Is that how much money that you need to bring in if you're a self-employed chiropractor? Oops, we got this one thing called what? Oh yeah, we got this thing called overhead. What's the national average? 50%. Now, it's going to be more than 50% to this because you're not even going to make it yet. So the national average of overhead is $12,000 to $14,000 a month for a single practice. That's what the national average is. Okay? You can find these statistics very easily. Chiropractic Economics does an annual study of overhead, utilization and overhead. You can go there every year and just look at it. Okay, so let's say the overhead is $12,000. $12,000 times 12, $144,000. That's your overhead. You collect $144,000. How much profit did you make? Zero. 100% of it went to overhead. You just went broke. Okay? Let's add in the $47,000. Can we agree the $47,000 is probably a bare minimum for you? Okay? Let's run parallels. Let's say you want to make $100,000 a year. Okay? Let's run parallels. So here you would need 144 plus 77, which is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 7, 12, 4, 5, 6. Is that right? No, that's not right.
191.
What's 144 and 47?
191.
191. Okay, thanks. 191. Okay, so if you collect 191,000, 47, 144, 12,000 went to overhead a month. That's 47,000 probably. You had to collect $191,000. Coming over here, how much was it? So you got 144 plus 100, so you got 244, right?
Yep.
Okay, so here, to make $100,000 a year, you need to collect 244. All right. So here we go. How many new patients are you going to need? Right. Starts with dollar per visit, right? Well, let's start with the national average.
60.
No, that's not the national average. 42. Okay. Can one of you pull your calculator out for me? So we got a $42 per visit. You need 244, so divide 42 into 244,000. That'll give us the number of visits, right?
5,809.
5,809 visits. That's for the year.
All right, do it by month.
Divide that by 52.
111.
You need 111 visits a week to pull that off at a $42 per visit. What do we need over here? We got 191, divide that by 42. How many visits do we?
4,548.
4,548. Divide by 52. 87. So you need 87 patient visits here to make $47,000 a year. Here you need 111 to make $100,000 a year. Okay. All right. This all makes sense as of now, right? These are real. Now, these can be changed, right? Obviously, if we had a higher dollar per visit, but what would we need to do to have a higher dollar per visit? You have to be a better communicator. Do people want to naturally pay more? What does that mean to your knowledge and skill level? It means it has to be more. What's another way to increase your dollar per visit? Like what? Yeah, just add a higher dollar. And that's what a lot of chiropractors do. Instead of increasing their skill level, they just go and add another model like personal injury or neuropathy or disc decompression. Those are some of the common models. Now they're chasing a paradigm shift of, cell generation and all that stuff. That's a whole nother animal. That's a whole nother marketing major mistake. And that's, again, back to being everything to everybody. That's when you get to be nobody to everybody. Okay? So, we're just using normal numbers. How many new patients do we need here? 110 visits a week. I tell you what. Let's go to a month. Let's also look at a monthly figure. So take this 5801, divide it by 12, and what's the monthly figure?
483.
483?
Yep.
Okay. So that's 483 patient visits, and over here it's a month, so 45, 48 divided by 12, 379. Okay, so this is what I need monthly. This is what I need weekly. How many new patients do I need now? This is what makes the biggest, most significant difference in your life. Why do I say life? Because this is what's going to determine your lifestyle. Would you agree there's a different lifestyle between making $47,000 a year and $100,000? This has the greatest significance and impact in your lifestyle in a chiropractic office. How many new patients? Well, what's that going to be based on? Patient retention. You got a patient retention of 1, how many new patients do you need that month? You got a patient retention of 2, how many new patient visits do you need a month? You got a patient retention of, what's happening here?
The more you retain, the less new patients you need.
Well, let's go into real numbers. The national average is 18, so divide 18 into this. That's how many new patients you would need if you were at a national average of 18. At a 42,
26.
how much?
26.
26. If you had a patient visit, dollar visited of 42, a national overhead of $12,000 a month, that's the national average. You would need 5801 patient visits a year, 483 a month. If you averaged 1 patient retention per visit, that's called the joint. You would need 483 new patients. How much time and money you got to spend to get 483 new patients? What's the national average of new patients?
You said 18.
Yeah, it's also 18, but what's the difference between this? Again, does a normal chiropractor, are they going to naturally get 18 patient visit retention? No. This is from a doctor who's been in practice 14 years that's applying patient education. In other words, he's doing everything he can to do what? Stop this. In other words, that's their skill level. That's the national average skill. Now mine was 33. Excuse me, my new patients was 33. My dollar per visit was only 28. No, I'm sorry. No. I'm getting my numbers mixed up. Patient retention, my patient retention, when I practiced by myself, was 28. I was okay with that. I was okay with that. Why? I had 33 new patients. I had more new patients than I physically could handle. Most chiropractors, if they're really good, can only handle 20 new patients a month if they're keeping them past 20 visits. Because remember, the more you keep them, they start stacking up in those industrial hours. What have you noticed as you started keeping patients during your industrial hours? You can't see as many new patients, can you? So you saw 47 patients yesterday. How many more new patients could you have fit in there? None. And if they did come in, what would happen to them? You'd have lost them. You'd have lost them through all the inefficiencies, all the lack of. It's not just one thing typically. It's a combination of you're rushed, less. What happens to your communication when you're rushed? What happens to your effectiveness? See, it's a combination of several factors that push people out the back door quicker when you get a lot of new patients. Now, that's not chiropractic. Why? So this is the national average when you know what you're doing and you've been in practice 14 years, 18 new patients. So does that mean when a new graduate gets out, he's going to get 18 new patients and he's going to get 18 retention? He's going to have a big lesson, isn't he? Or she. This is from chiropractors who's been in practice 14 years and they're trying to keep them. They've been educated, they have some kind of knowledge and experience. This isn't the novice. What's the national average of market forces of chiropractors? Generally speaking, when you open an office and you don't do anything else in particular, how many new patients can you expect? From market forces. In other words, the number of patients in your geographic radius of draw coming to you just because you're a chiropractor there. How many?
6 to 8.
Now, it'll vary depending on the population, right? In your geographic radius. And it'll vary on the number of chiropractors in that area, right? Okay. So generally speaking, you're right, it's 6 to 8. You'll get about 6 to 8. Why is that? Because there's only 8% utilization. You only have 8% of the population looking for a chiropractor. So if your geographic radius of draw, say, is 3 miles, and in that 3 miles, do some math for me if you would. Let's say you have a population of 20,000. Multiply 0.08 times 20,000.
1,600.
So 1,600. That's how many potential patients are looking for a chiropractor, right? Okay. Now divide that by 12 months.
133.
100, and now divide that by how many chiropractors are in that area. That's how it gets down to 6 to 8. Now it's real, the less population and the more chiropractors. In other words, that ratio. So if you can get a ratio of like 3,000 to 1 chiropractor, population, then that's a lot better. If it's a 1,000 to 1 chiropractor, that's a lot worse. And I'm even suggesting that the demographics and the psychographics are high probable chiropractic patients. So if you even go to an area that the demographics and psychographics are not high probable, it's not even 8%. Because not everybody picks chiropractic demographically and psychographically. So there's only 2 times you can open a practice and not know patient retention or marketing and do really well based on the S-curve of economics. When are those 2 times? You're the only chiropractor in the 20,000. You could treat them bad, get a lot. Because how many did you say there were a month? 100 and something?
33.
You could treat them bad, couldn't you?
Right.
You can have them wait in the waiting room. You can kick them in the butt. Right? Because you only need 20 or 30 or 40 or whatever, 50. So you could abuse half of them, right? Okay? That's if you're the only chiropractor. Where does that exist?
Alaska.
I've only, in 77 offices I've opened in 20 states. That's only existed in one place. And I purposely opened an office there. It was a rural county of 7,000. So the county population was 7,000. County. It was an agricultural rural. The main hub, the city, had a 700 population. It was just a rural town. But it was right next to a major metropolitan area. The next county over was the major metropolitan area. Well, what did I know about those 7,000 people? None of them were seeing chiropractors? No. I knew 8% of them were. Where were they going for chiropractic? The next county. And what do I know about why people pick products and services in brick and mortar? What do I know? What's the second leading cause that they'll pick a brick and mortar location? Brick and mortar. Location. Location. Number 1's trust. So I got 7,000 people there. 8% are going to chiropractor. They're going over here, but I know their number 1 priority is they'd rather go somewhere closer than further. I knew that, right? But I also knew the 80-20 rule, the 80-17 rule. Does that mean 100% of them? So I knew if I opened an office there, how many new patients would I get immediately without doing anything? I would get a certain number just from market forces, right?
8%.
Right. Well, not really. 80%. Because 3% of the people are going to stay loyal to wherever they go. They'll drive the extra difference and stay loyal. 17% are on the fence. 80% will chuck whoever they're going to, and they're going to somebody in their backyard instead of 40 minutes away. We opened a practice there, and 8 weeks later, it was seeing 100 visits a week. 3 months later, we were seeing 150 visits a week. The population of the city was 700. We were seeing 150 visits a week. Would you ever have opened an office in a town of 750? No. Because you didn't know those stats. I knew those stats, and I knew immediately that practice would be successful without any marketing. Now, once I got those patients, what did I know about patient retention now? Well, if I ran them in the front door and out the back door, I was probably going to be in trouble, right? But I knew if I was just average, 18, I was getting 8% of those 80% of 7,000, and I was going to get 18 visits. What did I know immediately was going to happen as soon as I opened an office there? I could have put an idiot in there. And they could have been, not good at this at all, but delivered it. And that's what happened. We put a practice there, didn't do any new marketing, shot up to 150 visits a week in roughly 3 months because of everything I just told you. Whereas the only other time you can open an office and that happens, when the products or service in high demand and they're past the 10% Morgan's Law, and there's not as many providers as there is demand. Is that chiropractic? Nope. 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 It's not happening. Hadn't gone there in 130 years, and it's not going to. It's violating everything. Chiropractic is violating everything possible, which is required to get it past Morgan's Law, the 10%, to get it into mass acceptance. So it's not. And the keys to get it to do it, chiropractic violates all the time. So we know it's not, and it hasn't.
Does that change?
They were saying 30 years ago, yeah, it's gone down. Utilization's gone down in 20 years. New patients have gone down, patient visits have gone down. So what was I hearing? And I graduated in 1987. So what was I hearing in 1987? Oh, any minute now, any day now, we're going to be accepted in the masses. 30 years ago they were saying that. What are they saying today? Oh, we're on the brink of mass acceptance. No, we're not, because we're violating all the main principles it takes to get past Morgan's Law based on the S-curve of economics, which is the science of how consumers buy products and services. It's not a philosophy. So, Palmer College of Chiropractic obviously knew somebody in chiropractic. Palmer College knew some of these basics. They knew that location is the number one after trust and name recognition. That's the number one reason you'll pick a chiropractic college. First, you'll go to the brand, Palmer. After that, you're going to go local. What's local? Chances are that's what you did.
Yeah.
So there's this state called Florida. It's got 18 million people in it. No chiropractic college. And then they were going to open a chiropractic college with an agreement with Florida State University. That'd have been fantastic, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
For name recognition, acceptance. The medical people in Florida State went nuts. But who killed the deal? Palmer College of Chiropractic. Why? Because they were opening a college in Florida. They knew if they were the only college in Florida, what were they going to get? 80% of the students that didn't want to leave state, they wanted to purchase in their backyard. And that's exactly what happened. They opened a school and immediately they got X amount of people just because they were the only game in town.
Right.
Where does that exist for you in your practice? It doesn't.
Right.
So, now there's good news and bad news about that. The bad news is if you don't know the S-curve of economics and you don't know how to go into the 92% of the population that's not looking for a chiropractor, you're stuck with the 8%. Bad news is if you don't know patient education, you're not only stuck with the 8%, they're only going to come for 6 to 8 visits. And that's why 50% of the chiropractors are bankrupt and out of chiropractic in 5 years. More than half my class isn't even practicing now. It's a true statistic.
Yeah, they told us that at school.
Yeah. I was going through the airport a few months back. One of the TSA agents stopped me and said, "Hey, aren't you Dr. Paul?" I said, "Yeah." I said, do I know you? What do I know you from? I didn't recognize her. She said, "Yeah, I was in one of your personal injury seminars. I was an associate doctor for this doctor, but I didn't like how he treated me and blah, 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 blah. And I just got fed up with chiropractic." So she quit. She's a TSA agent. That's chiropractic. Thank you, subluxation. That's what low utilization's about. So you got an uphill battle. That's like people go, oh, you're a chiropractor. Oh, you got it made. Yeah, I got it made with 8% utilization and 67% negative name recognition. I got it made. Yeah, right. No, you better damn well know something. You better first know how to keep patients. Because when you don't know how to keep them, you're going to need 483 to make $100,000 a year. That's 111 visits a week. Oh, by the way, what's the national average of patient visits a week? 107. That's people that are in practice. That doesn't include all the people who failed and are out of practice. And chiropractic is like every other industry with Pareto's law. Do all attorneys make a six-figure income? Do all accountants make a six-figure income? No. It's called Pareto's law. You know it as the 80-20 rule. 3% of every profession makes the vast majority of money in that profession. 17% make above average. 80% do average to below average. So it's not across the board. It's a real small percentage of people like me who made over millions of dollars a year that pulled that statistic way up for the mass amount of chiropractors seeing 40 or 60 visits a week. That's what happens in every industry. There's the leaders, the 3%ers, the 7. That's called Pareto's law. Look it up. It's science-based, 1920. Economic rule. Excuse me. Okay. So what are we trying to get here? We're going, okay, that's just the business model. So now you need 483 new patients a month, or what did we say here, 26 a week? Is that what this was?
26 new patients.
A week?
Yeah.
Okay.
A month, I believe is what it was.
Okay, yeah, this was a year, right?
Yeah.
It's 483, okay, it's 26 a month. And market forces are going to give you 6 to 8 depending on your ratio.
Right.
We got a little bit of a problem here, don't we? Okay. By the way, you go, well, why is it that when you see a joint practice, why is it that they can succeed? Well, they've done a couple things. Number one, they went after the price category of chiropractic. There's 5 reasons why we buy products and services. Trust, location, price are the top 3. Nobody was going after the price category. And generally that's a bad category to go after for many reasons. So they got real low prices, right? They're not into keeping people, nothing, low prices, all that. So how can they survive with these kind of statistics?
A lot of new patients, right?
They lead a lot of new patients, but that doesn't happen naturally. So what are the dynamics? Here's the key dynamics of why it works. Number one, they put the offices in high density geographic radius of draws. It's not 20,000. I've got an office in my town, and my town's population is 100,000. So is there a little bit of a difference between 8% from 20,000 versus 8% from 100,000? So that's one thing that they benefit, that they'll do purposefully. Because they've tried to go out into the more rural towns, and they go bankrupt. They don't make it. They go into a town of 30,000, they don't make it. Number two, they have real low overhead. They just have tables. No therapy, no x-ray. They got unbelievably low overhead. They're paying a little above minimum wage to a couple workers. That's in that their highest pay is the doctor that might make $5,000 or $6,000 a month. So they got really low overhead. So that helps. So they have a natural probability of more new patients. They own the category of price. They have a real low overhead. So they can make the same amount of money here, but profit more. Because their overhead's not going to be to 12 or 14,000. And then here's the third thing that they do. They market the hell out of pay-per-click. They spend a lot of money on Google pay-per-click. In other words, they buy their patients. You go in any area where there's a joint, and they'll spend a lot of money to be first on that page in pay-per-click. It's pay-per-click. They own the category of price. That'll naturally, and they got a higher density. And so that's why they'll get 50, 100 new patients a month that are only staying for 1, 2, or 3 visits. That's the only dynamic of why it works. Okay. Now, in chiropractic, you could do some other things like that. Like if you actually knew what you're doing with new patients and retention, you could actually just go subcontract out of somebody's office and give them a percentage. That's the cheapest, easiest way to start a practice. But you better know what you're doing. You better know how to keep them, and then you better know how to get them. But that's the cheapest, easiest way. So if you're seeing 60 visits a week at a $45 per visit, and you're giving 50%, you've at least made 50% if you're seeing 40 visits a week. If you're in your own practice and you're seeing 40 visits a week, 100% of that money went to fixed expenses overhead. You went bankrupt. So there's ways of manipulating the system, all these different levers to maximize profitability. Okay, so here you need 26 new patients a month. Here we needed how many? 12 into 3, 79. Okay, 32 a month. So for you to make a $47,000 income, $42 per visit, average overhead $12,000 a month. That's like you being in your office with 1 or 2 employees, equipment, all that stuff. You need 32 new patients. National average is 6 to 8. Patient retention, when somebody knows what they're doing, is 18. Over here you need 26. So here's the obvious question. What's your patient retention? Huh? Guess who should know your patient retention? You should.
Everything.
If you don't know your patient retention, what do we know you're automatically getting? Yeah, that's what we already know you're getting when you don't know the number. So how do you find out what your patient retention is? Well, the weak way, it's not totally accurate, but a close way, is you take a time frame and you take the total number of patient visits divided by the total number of new patients. So if I took a 3-month period, take the total number of patients that you saw, you guys know your stats, how many patient visits you saw in the last 3 months, month per month?
No.
See, that's a statistic you should know. When you don't know a statistic, what's the rule? This is what you get. Because statistics don't grow by themselves. Do you understand this? Do you understand this? Owner, statistics don't grow by themselves. You get market forces with the statistics you don't know. Now, chiropractors don't like to keep statistics. They do 3 things with statistics. Number 1, they don't keep them. Why don't chiropractors not keep statistics? Why does a human being not want to keep statistics? Huh? That's true. What else?
They don't want to know.
Don't want to know. Don't want to know. Makes you accountable.
Can't deny.
That's right. Number 2 is they'll lie on their stats. Well, it's that because of fill in the freaking blank. You'll hear every excuse there is. And I'll go, yeah, because no other chiropractors are dealing with that. But you'll come up with any excuse that's real to you. And then number 3 is they'll rationalize and justify. Well, they're that way because... Now that's the person you can't help. When somebody doesn't take personal responsibility, is the person you never can help. Those are the people we let go. Personally, that's what I do. I let them. Somebody's not personally accountable, I don't deal with them. Okay. So, here's where you're at. Patient, you don't know your stats, right? You don't know your visits, So guess what we know we are naturally gravitating toward? Yeah. You're not going to naturally, Mother Nature's not going to naturally gravitate gravitate you toward massive abundance, is it? Okay? That's only going to occur in two scenarios, right? You're the only provider in town, or you're at the beginning of the S-curve when way more people want your product or service than that are delivering it. Doesn't exist.
That runs out pretty quick though.
Oh yeah, as soon as people find out they're making the money, what happens?
Everybody else.
Yeah, and then guess how harder it gets to make money. Now you got to compete on service, price, and quality. You got to do better work, more work, less profitability. Yeah. It's actually, I say it all the time, it's the worst of chiropractic, but it's the best that there's only 8%. The worst, there's 8%. So if you don't know anything about it, sales for patient retention or new patients, you're going to get a small number and they're not going to stay very long. You're screwed. That's why 50% go bankrupt. The good thing about 8% for people like me, I know sales. I know how to get new patients and how to keep them. The good news about that 8% is of the 92%, 3 out of 4 of them have a chiropractic problem. Back pain, neck pain. 84% of the people go to chiropractors for low back pain, neck pain, headaches. 7% for neuromuscular extremities. Only 9% of 8% for the visceral somatic. So out of that 75%, how do we know that there's a massive amount of people that have these typical chiropractic problems? It's the second leading cause of new patients to general practitioners. So you can take this chiropractic office, go in a 3-mile radius, identify all the general practitioners. The second leading reason they get new patients is back pain. They get way more new back pain patients going to their office than to your office. So the market's there. They're not coming to you. Thank you, subluxation. Number 2, it's the second leading cause of going to the emergency room. They're going by this office every day to the local emergency room for back pain. Number 3, it's the second leading workers' compensation problem. Number 4, it's the number 1 cause of disability, osteoarthritis. There's massive amount of business driving by this office every day, not looking for this chiropractor. Thank you, subluxation. So if you don't know how to get that business, and there's only one type of marketing that gets that business, and that's called educational sales. You have to have the ability to shift their consciousness from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence, establish the need, minimize the obstacles of time or money. When you know how to do that, you get people to stay. When you know how to do that, you get a lot of new patients coming in. You get more new patients, and you need a lot less when I know how to get them to stay. So in my case, my patient retention was 28. How many new patients could I see efficiently before I just started losing them left and right through bad service and making them wait and rushing things and not being good? How many? Well, I averaged 33 new patients, more than I physically can handle. So I'm still pushing them out the back door because I can't handle that many. You only have a limited amount of time of exchange of time for money. These are the numbers. Now you don't know them if you're seeing 10 new patients a month or 15. You think you got all day and you can do whatever the hell you want. And that's what you do typically, and so you have really bad habits. So you found out in the last 90 days how your bad habits limited the hell out of you, didn't you? So you started doing patient education, you started keeping them, and you shoot up. So yesterday you see 47 visits. Prior to yesterday you seen 47. What was the most amount of visits you saw in a day? 28. So you took this patient education and went from 28 to 47 just because of this patient education, right? Yep. Okay. And that's only one day, right? Yeah. Do you have any more room for new patients? No. He maxed himself out with only patient education. He doesn't even know marketing. You damn well don't know educational sales, do you? He doesn't have a clue. I bring him up here, teach educational sales. He won't know. You wouldn't know where to start, would you? And watch this. How many marketing systems do you have in your office? One.
Internal marketing.
And now when I say a system, I'm talking about something that's done regularly and repetitively. Somebody's been trained on it and there's accountability. How many of those do you have? None. Typical chiropractor. No marketing systems. But he maxed himself out, essentially, with patient education. The market forces new patients he was getting. He changed his skill level. He changed his knowledge and his skill level. And in 90 days, he maximized his... So something's got to change, doesn't it? Yeah. For you to see more new patients, space, labor, equipment, delivery, something's got to change, right? Yep. Yeah. That's how it works. But that's a much better position to be in than not having the knowledge or skill and being stuck at 6 to 8 new patients coming in 6 to 8 times, isn't it? Yeah. You feel a lot more comfortable. You're coming from a lot more position of strength now? Yeah. Feel a lot better being in control of your business?
Yeah, a little bit more.
Yeah. How about your livelihood? Because ultimately, isn't that what we're talking about? So what did he just do to his livelihood? Well, let's do a little math. Is that okay with you? So he went from 28 visits in that one day to 47. What's the difference between 47 and 28? So we got 19 visits. And let's just put that at 3 days a week, because the typical chiropractor sees the most amount of patients Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, because that's how you would see 3 times a week. Twice a week would be Monday, Wednesday. Once a week would be Wednesday. So that's why typically Tuesday and Thursday are very light days. Thursday's typically the lightest. Okay, so let's just apply this only to 3 days. Let's not even take into consideration Tuesday or Thursday. So he did 19, he increased his ability, 19 a day. 57. What's your dollar per visit?
50.
His is 50. So 19 times 3 is 57?
57.
57 times 50.
2850.
2850. Multiply that times 52 weeks in a year.
148,000.
He just increased his business $148,000 with no new patients. That's how he did it. He did it with knowledge and skill. And he moved his patients from market forces more into one of these systems. In this case, it was the 3 phases of healing. And he's not even good at it. Are you probably not over 50% of the people prepaying, are you? Are you at 50?
No, the last number I dropped below 50.
So you're maybe at 40%? Okay. So he's not even at 50% prepay. And he's already increased his business $148,000. Will additional $148,000 change your lifestyle? Will that change your lifestyle? Will it change the house you live in? Will it change your vacations? Will it change your kids going from public to private school? Will it change the clothes they wear?
Not right now, but yeah.
Because they got what, uniforms or something?
Nah,
Okay, clothes are good. Okay, they get nice clothes. Will it change the restaurants you go to?
absolutely.
Will it change the number of times you go out to restaurants? No. Shows?
Yeah.
Vacations? How about investing in your future with passive income sources?
Absolutely.
What just happened to his quality of life?
Not just mine, but my kids.
Thank you. Thank you. He did it for his kids. Did it for his family. So he did no more new patients. He only increased his prepay 40%. And that's only a $50 per visit. We're not talking about PI $100 per visit here. See, he changed his skill level. He didn't go try to buy more new patients or try to get PI patients, or in other words, not change his skill level. He invested in himself. Now, is he going to be able to do that the rest of his life? Once you have a knowledge base, once you know how to throw a football, are you always going to know how to throw a football? Once you know how to ride a bike, are you always going to know how to ride a bike? Is he always going to be able to do that the rest of his life? Yeah, because he changed his skill level, his knowledge base. Yeah, he's going to be able to do that the rest of his life. And it's just going to go up from there. Then it's up to him whether he wants to go past 40%, whether he wants to go into a higher dollar per visit model. It's up to him. But I'd say that's a good one. Now, what's so fantastic about this number right here, $148,000? What's so fantastic about that number? How much overhead is associated with that number? How much did you have to increase your overhead to do this business? Zero. It's really 97% profit. Because you did have paper, pens or paper, but all the big overhead. Did he have to increase the space? No. Labor? No. Equipment? No. All the big costs, he's already paying. Light? Did you have to add more lights to see those patients?
No, I had to get rid of equipment.
Yeah. And that's interesting you say that. He said he had to get rid of equipment, actually. In other words, you had to learn how to be efficient, right? Yeah. Same with space, too. We use less space, less equipment, and higher profitability. It's called,
6 rooms.
yeah, he went from 6 rooms to 3, less equipment, and he increased his business $148,000 with no more new patients. All because of what? Knowledge and skill. That's life-changing. Now it's up to him how much further he wants to go past that, because now he knows already how to keep them. Now guess what happens if he knows how to get them? Well, he already can't see anymore. Now he needs an associate doctor. And once you know how to get them and keep them, what's stopping you from doing that more and more? Because how big is the market? Well, out of the 92%, 3 out of 4 of them have a back pain, neck pain, headaches to some degree. So once you know how to go into this big market, it's way more patients you physically can see. But it's based on knowledge and skill, not market forces, not lack of responsibility, not keeping statistics. How many times did I text you at the end of the week what your stats were?
Every week.
Say that again.
Every week.
Every week. Because you'll never get this without knowing where you're at. And you'll always get this when you don't know where you're at. Okay, so here's the dilemma. How do we marry this with this? Because we don't want to just deliver this, right? I mean, if there's no reason behind this is like unethical, immoral, and right? So how unethical and immoral have you been increasing your business $148,000 a year?
I'm very ethical. We're more aware. Getting better.
What happened to your legitimacy of doing biomarkers that you were not doing before? Basing their care on their biomarkers? Basing their care on the phases of healing? How much more quality of care have you done because of that? How much fee splitting are you doing now? Fee splitting is when you charge, you know what fee splitting is, when you charge personal injury patients more than cash patients. You guys know what that is. How much fee splitting is going on now? How much better of a chiropractor has he become? He's increased his knowledge, his skill. He's based on foundational principles. He didn't have to worry about being immoral and unethical. As a matter of fact, prior to doing this, there was some fee splitting going on. There were patients that were getting more treatment recommendations if they were personal injury cases versus cash. They were getting more therapy than the other patient. It was based on their insurance, not the patient's health. That's called fraud. And then fee splitting is when you charge them differently. So we stopped fee splitting, we stopped fraud, he increased his quality of care, decreased his overhead, essentially. He went from 6 rooms to 3, increased his efficiency, and he maximized this exchange of time for money. No more new patients because he just increased his knowledge. He was getting this. He didn't have much knowledge or skill, and he was getting market forces. Now he's getting more of this, and he's not even a black belt at this. He's not even a black belt. You don't have to be a black belt. But you do want to be over 50% in prepay, because if you're not, you're going to lose a lot of patients. When you lose a lot of patients, that means you're going to need a lot of patients. And if you don't know educational sales, it means you're going to have to go buy them. What does that mean? Your overhead just skyrocketed. The quality of patients significantly just went down. Your overhead significantly went up. Your profitability just went down. You can't buy your way into health, into profitability and abundance. If you could, every chiropractor would do it. They would just spend the money, buy the patients, and that'd be the end of it. You wouldn't have to have much knowledge or skill. But you can't do that with 8% utilization, and they don't want to come in. You have to know something different. You have to have a knowledge base. So if you don't have a conviction here, you can't communicate this. So if you don't know it, you can't communicate it. If you don't believe in it, you can't communicate it. And if you got bad communication skills, you can't communicate it, which means you're stuck more up here. Well, stay in your apartment. Don't worry about buying a new house. Don't worry about buying a new car. Don't even think about a vacation. And then you go, what are you doing for your patient's care? Well, now the care is based all on the biomarkers that he wasn't doing, now he's doing, and he knows how to interpret them, and he knows how to make it affordable. And he's not even good at it. And he increased his business $148,000. You feeling pretty good about where your business is headed from 3 months ago to now?
Yeah.
And he can take it with him anywhere he goes, like I did. Like I went bankrupt and under when I didn't know anything. And I told you my story. I went out and I got all these bad statistics. I didn't know anything. I went under. And then I accidentally came in with a doctor just by chance. My pure accident. I got lucky. I got involved with a doctor that knew the basics of business. He knew the basics of this, and he trained me in it. He didn't pay me very well, which bothered me at the time, but he made me a multimillionaire. His training made me a multimillionaire. I went from there to opening my practice. 6 weeks, I went to 100 visits a week, to my first year collecting, to profiting $232,000 with a 16% overhead. 5 years later, I had 32 offices. 9 years later, I had 77 offices in 20 states, doing $60 to $80 million a year. I was making multi-millions of dollars when I was 33, 34 years old. How? Because I was fortunate that somebody trained me. Instead of giving me a fish, they taught me how to fish. I was so fortunate. That's the difference this makes with knowledge and skill. And it all starts with patient education. Knowing it and making it affordable. How many people are being turned away from care now that can't afford care? None. We make it affordable. We do good education. We increase our communication skills. That includes getting yelled at. But you got to show up. I showed up, got yelled at, and I became a multimillionaire. That's the difference it makes. So this is patient education. This is the importance of patient education. And chiropractors are running blindly. New patients, new patients, new patients. No new patients whatsoever, and he maxed himself out. And he based it on moral and ethical, 3 phases of healing, the biomarkers that support it, and he made it affordable, and he increased his communication skills. That took some effort, didn't it? It took some effort. Your kids are going to be thankful for this 20 years from now. They're going to appreciate it. Now, after you do that, we'll pay attention. Obviously, we'll pay attention to overhead, but is he going to increase his business $148,000 by cutting overhead? No. So is that a business thing we want to pay attention to? Sure. Do we want to pay attention to dollar per visit? Sure, we'd all like to make more money per unit of time. But now he knows how to do it. He knows how to increase his dollar per visit, but he hasn't learned the high dollar per visit system yet. Whether it's disc, personal injury, he hasn't learned that yet. So how much of an upside does he have? Huge. He doesn't know educational sales. He doesn't know advertising to get more of the 8%. So imagine if he just learned the basics of advertising to get more of the 8%.
Well, now my problem is more referrals are new patients went up, but I can't handle them, so I have to get better to not lose them.
Yeah, you see what he said? Now he's getting more referrals. Now there's less money you need to spend on advertising. Higher profitability, lower crappy patients. What's it all come back to? Knowledge, no. His knowledge and skill. Did he know how to do it? Because that did not happen by an accident, did it? Now, what kind of upside does he have? Well, he still can go up. He's at 40% prepay. He can go up. Dollar per visit, that's going to go up easy as soon as he learns the educational sales for the higher dollar per visit. He can do a little more advertising if he wants. There's only really one advertising I recommend, and that's it. And then educational sales, he's not tapping into that 92% at all. Where's the ceiling? There's no ceiling. That's why I did 77 offices, 20 states. Had 2 associate doctors, seen 350 visits a week. There is no ceiling. The ceiling is you. The market is fantastic with 8% utilization. It's really bad if you don't know patient education and educational sales. It's really bad, and you're probably not going to make it. You're going to have to look for another profession. TSA may be hiring. But it's fantastic if you know patient education. And then, especially if you know educational sales, that's when you max out not only your time for money, that's when you have an significant increase in money. And so instead of making $250,000 a year, you're making $500,000. Now you're making high quality money, and you're doing investment money. Now you're creating investments for passive income in the future. And that's why in 5 years, if he does his investments right, he will not have to work. He'll have a passive income of $100,000 and will not have to work in 5 years. Where are you going to be in 5 years? End of story. This is how it all comes into a line. This is how this morally, ethically aligns with the business and the money. We don't worry about cost to patients, do we? Never. I never worry, because I know the value I'm giving them is fantastic, and I'm going to make it affordable, period, and I'm not going to turn anybody away, period. So I never let money or time be the issue, because I will make it affordable and I will respect their time. I learned that. I learned how to do that. And then I learned how to change their awareness to where they didn't want this. This made a hell of a lot of sense. And they said, yeah, I'll buy into it. I like that. And then I learned this. And now the problem I have is hiring associate doctors. I got way too much business. And then I did it at one office after the next, after the next. 52% of the doctors that I hired and put in practice had already gone out and went bankrupt. It wasn't because they didn't know chiropractic. It's because they didn't know this. That's why they went bankrupt. They came in and trained. There were several offices. We just shut down for 6 months. We just paid the rent and shut down. They came in and trained for 6 months. And then we went right back and opened that same office. And the national average 1 year later was 222 patient visits a week from the same guy who went bankrupt. Just like me. When I didn't know any better, I went bankrupt. I got trained. I became a multimillionaire. That's the difference it makes. So this is how the money totally aligns. But you have to have knowledge and skill, and takes effort. It's not going to happen on itself with 8% utilization and a 67% negative name recognition, and them only wanting symptom care. So the less you know, the more of this you get. The more of this you get, the less of this you get. The less of this you get, the more shitty quality lifestyle you get. You stay in your rented apartment, stay in your 5-year-old car, don't take vacations, don't even plan on it. Send your kids to public school and live in a crime area. And then eventually get out of chiropractic. And that's 50% of the profession. Your choice.